Welcome to Alpha Recap. Today we're walking through a market day that mixed a big structural story in semiconductors with a surprising flood of corporate filings and a consumer security scare. As always, if you have questions, you can reach us at stockalpha.ai. Let's dig in.
Thanks for having me. I was honestly a bit surprised by how much headline density we had today. A single strong signal from Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company showed up alongside a bunch of 8Ks and a PayPal incident. Lots to unpack.
What really stands out here is that Taiwan Semiconductor was framed as benefiting from strong underlying business growth. And that narrative was powerful enough to set the tone for chip stocks today.
Right, analysts and fund managers were talking about how improving foundry fundamentals could re-rate peers, equipment suppliers and wafer customers. But the commentary also flagged that you had to watch cycle metrics like capacity and wafer starts to know whether this was structural or cyclical.
Hold on, say that again? Structural versus cyclical. Why does that distinction even matter for somebody listening?
Good question. If the improvement was structural, meaning sustained demand for advanced nodes from AI and data centers, that could support a longer-term re-rating for foundry exposure. But if it was cyclical, it could be a temporary demand patch and you'd see more volatility later. So portfolio posture changes depending on which story you believe.
Mm-hmm. And alongside that big semiconductor story, today brought a lot of corporate disclosures.
Exactly. At least 8 issuers filed 8Ks today. Those filings range from other events to material definitive agreements and even changes in control. That kind of admin throughput can create episodic volatility, especially in small caps and biotechs.
Give listeners a quick primer. What is an 8K, and why should anyone beyond an SEC nerd care?
An 8K is a near real-time notice companies file to disclose material events. Some items are extremely consequential. An item 1.01 could change contractual rights. Item 2.02 might give condensed results. Item 8.01 is other events, and item 9.01 attaches supporting exhibits. For traders and people focused on governance, these documents can move a stock fast because they often reveal new obligations, financing, or control changes.
And the filings we saw today included names like Strive, Tempest Therapeutics, Natural Shrimp, and Unicisive.
Some of those had accession numbers if listeners want to look them up. Strive was accession number 000-162-828-0-26-021-870. Tempest had 000-119-3125-26-130-480. And Natural Shrimp was 000-1493152-26-013436.
Right, and Natural Shrimp's 8K included a change in control plus unregistered equity sales. That's the sort of thing that makes short-term traders think about dilution and governance risk.
Which ties into the next thread today, a consumer security incident involving PayPal. Tell us about that.
A MarketWatch reader reported unexpected funds showing up from the Philippines and listed phone numbers that led to problems when called. Now, one anecdote doesn't prove systemic failure, but trust and security are central to payment platforms. If these incidents stack up, you can see reputational damage and even regulatory attention.
On one hand, you've got a macro sector positive for semiconductors, and on the other, a consumer incident that could affect a fintech name. That's quite the juxtaposition.
Yeah, that tracks. And then, add to that, Walmart de Mexico announced an expansion of its EdgeSense rollout with Fusion across Walmart Express stores, with a full Express rollout by the end of 2026, and later scaling to supercenters.
EdgeSense. That's the connected store platform, right? What did the announcement mean in practical terms?
Exactly. It's about digitizing inventory and analytics at store level. Over time, you could see better shrink control and potentially improved store-level metrics, but it's a staged rollout. So CapEx and employee training matter, and full benefits might not show up for a couple of years.
Switching gears, there was also an earnings watch component. Zacks flagged Oracle, Micron, and FedEx in their earnings preview, which tends to heighten headline flow and short-term volatility into earnings windows.
Right. When big research providers point to specific names, traders often key off that and position for potential moves. It was another source of event-driven flow today.
Quick reaction segments. Not what anyone expected. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's dig into divergence of views. On Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, analysts diverged on structural re-rating versus cyclical durability. How should listeners think about that?
I mean, when you step back and look at this, the structural case rested on secular demand for advanced nodes and the company's scale. If bookings and capacity utilization stay strong, equipment suppliers and fabless customers tend to benefit. The skeptical camp said, look at wafer starts, segment margins, and whether ASPs are holding. If those roll over, the move could be temporary.
And for investors, that translates into different time horizons and risk management. Longer-term believers watch node mix and CapEx guidance. Tactical players watch short-term bookings. Simple as that?
Simple, but not easy. You had to be disciplined about which KPIs you followed. For instance, foundry ASPs and share of 5 nanometer or 3 nanometer revenue were cited as key indicators to watch.
Covering the 8Ks again. Atmos Energy disclosed a material definitive agreement and creation of a direct financial obligation. What should conservative investors have taken away?
Income and conservative investors should have paid attention. New direct financial obligations change leverage and credit metrics, which can affect dividend flexibility. The practical step is to read the full 8K and look for follow-ons like prospectuses that explain covenants and interest costs.
Okay, and for event-driven players, Natural Shrimp's change in control set off classic trade triggers. You referenced accession number 000-1493152-26-013436 earlier for listeners to find it.
Yep, event-driven funds look for dilution, lockups, and related party transactions. Those filings often contain the very clauses that determine whether a trade is viable.
Let's pause for a reality check. What are the practical documents or metrics people should follow next week?
For Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, watch quarterly revenue by foundry segment, CapEx guidance, backlogs, and node mix. For the 8Ks we talked about, read the full filings on Edgar using the accession numbers we mentioned. For PayPal, track fraud expense trends and any regulatory filings. For Walmart Mexico, look for deployment milestones or pilot metrics on shrink and checkout times.
Yeah, that was a lot today. Small caps and biotechs really move on these 8K headlines.
Totally. Biotech investors should treat those filings as information-rich events. Tempest, Unicycive, FIO, and CBAC all had updates that could be binary drivers. Read the exhibits and financial schedules closely.
Before we wrap, can you give listeners 3 practical takeaways they can act on without giving investment advice?
Sure. 1. Differentiate structural themes from episodic events by tracking specific KPIs rather than headlines. 2. Read full 8Ks for names with recent filings. Don't rely solely on summaries. 3. Review liquidity and position sizing for small caps and biotechs where a single filing can be binary.
Those are clear. Final quick hits. Any closing observations about market tone today?
The market closed with a blend of structural optimism in semiconductors and elevated event risk from issuer-level filings, and a consumer security anecdote. That mix suggested momentum in certain tech pockets, but also a higher probability of short-term volatility around specific names.
Big move. Okay, time to wrap up.
Quick reminder, this is informational analysis only. Analysts note market developments and filing details. This briefing was not personalized investment advice and didn't recommend buying or selling any security.
Great point. If you want to dive deeper on any of these filings or data points, head to stockalpha.ai. If you have questions about anything we covered today, you can ask us directly at stockalpha.ai and we'll answer live. For more market analysis and insights, visit stockalpha.ai. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.